All right, guys, who is the best boxer in the world? Ever. I'm talking about ever. Ever. Who's the best boxer ever? I know that you'll need a minute because you don't know any boxers. And I know even you die-hard boxing fans that tell people you love boxing need a minute because you don't know any boxers. And I also know that most of you are going to say Muhammad Ali. Now, if I was to challenge you and tell me one fight that Muhammad Ali ever had, you could produce it, but you would need time to think about it. You might come out with the Thrill in Manila. Like you'll produce some level of answer, but you'll need a moment to think about it. In fact, let's just go with the fight with George Foreman, one of the most famous boxing matches of all time. The World Championship was on the line. What did those guys weigh? I mean, how the hell can you remember what they weighed? What was the weight limit? But we know it's the heavyweight class. What at that point in time was the number? You don't have any idea. That World Championship that we all just discussed in your favorite fight ever and the biggest match you've ever seen with the all-time greatest boxer. What belt were they fighting for? Was it the WBA? Was it the IBF? WBC, WBO, 3 other letters? Do you have any idea? No, you don't. You don't because you don't know anything about boxing. Now, don't take this as an insult. Nobody knows anything about boxing. The greatest boxer of all time is simply the most famous boxer of all time. That's it. If I was to ask you who the best boxer of the 90s was, you would not produce for me credentials. You would not produce for me weight classes. You would not produce for me revenues. You would not produce for me what they had done in the amateurs and they finally met up and here's how it was all settled. You would think and you'd go, okay, who got their name on SportsCenter more times or who got their face on Sports Illustrated more times? You would tell me nothing more than the most famous boxer of that time. If I asked you right now, who is the best boxer in the world? You would tell me 100% the most famous boxer in the world. You would have no ability to prove to me who the best boxer was. You would have no ability because boxing does not have an architecture. There is no sport anywhere absent of an architecture that can tell you who the best is. It's impossible. You do the best that you can. You leave a lot of it up to the audience. To get a world title fight, you must have the mandate of the masses. At least in theory, the masses are going to want the better guy. So when the masses define who the 2 guys that they want to see are, as long as your theory holds true, they will identify the top 2 guys, of which one of them wins, thus making him the best guy. But you also see the problems with that. You see why the NFL never did anything so stupid. You see why they have a playoff system in the form of a bracket, also known as a competitive architecture. And whatever team has more points than their opponent when time runs out advances to the next round of the playoff until there is one team left standing, identified as Super Bowl champion, signified by the fact that they had more points than the other guy when time ran out. That is the only way in the world to actually know how it's done. The Olympic Committee, the scum of the earth, but one of the most respected scum of the earth governing bodies in history, every single event has a competitive architecture. Popularity will not get you a gold medal. The NCAA, the bigger scum of the earth, but one of the most respected scum of the earths that has been around the longest amount of time. Every single sport has a competitive architecture known as a bracket. And everybody that ever gets that NCAA championship in any sport will have earned it and will have proven that they're better than everybody else through a competitive architecture, of which boxing doesn't have. Why do I bring this to your attention? Because we're going to see Bud Crawford taking on Canelo, and we're going to see that Saturday. Now, that's really good news. Those are 2 really tough guys, but you don't really know how good Canelo is. You don't really know. And you don't really know what synthetic chemicals help to make him that way. You know he failed a test, and you know he looks the exact same now as he did when he failed the test, which would lead a reasonable scientist to believe that whatever he was doing when he got caught, he is still doing. He's just not still getting caught. And I think we chalk the whole thing up to like horse meat. And I'm sharing this with you, and I'm bringing this to your attention because you don't know what he did in the juniors. You don't know what he did in the Golden Gloves. You don't know why he didn't represent Mexico at the Olympic Games. You don't know if he went through the Olympic process and he got beat, or if he just didn't enter and he went and got his pro card first. You don't actually know because you don't know anything about him. You don't know anything about him because you don't know anything about boxing. But it's okay. Nobody does. So every era, Mexico will anoint somebody the face of boxing. Every era. It's not because you had to win. You could even beat Canelo at 21 years old that got beat up for 12 rounds by an old man named Floyd Mayweather. You can wash that right away. You can say that he's too young. I mean, before the fight, you said that Floyd Mayweather was too old, but then when the fight's over, you can just say he's too young. They anoint somebody. All right, now I'm just bringing this to your attention because there is discussions that TKO Boxing is going to hold an Ultimate Fighter, but for boxing. They're going to hold, through the use of a competitive architecture, a straight line bracketed tournament. So now it's not a matter of who could get more headlines or who was better with the politics or the bureaucracy or whose dad used to box or who knows what promoter. It's not going to matter who's better on the microphone or who got crazier tattoos or who got better steroids. You're going to put everybody that raises their hand and says, I am better than them. And you're going to give them an opportunity to prove it. And they're not going to be big stars when it starts out. But when it's done, should they still be standing, they will be. And for the first time ever, if that in fact does happen, you actually will be able to answer the question. When I ask you who the best boxer ever is, you won't have to be the guy that just tells me the most famous. When I ask you the greatest of all time, you will not have to tell me what your granddad said or somebody else you overheard. When you tell me about great fights like Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, you're not going to look like a fool not being able to produce what the weight limit was. You're not going to look like a dum-dum not knowing when Michael Spinks and Mike Tyson fought what belts were on the line. What did Spinks have? What did Tyson have? Who sanctioned the event? You don't know any of those things. When Floyd Mayweather retired and let those 6 belts go, which 6 were they? You have no idea because you don't know anything about boxing. But that is about to change. And while I do scold you for looking like a fool, you're not going to have to look like a fool for long. Fortunately, Ultimate Fighter boxing, fortunately, opportunities to guys that raise their hand, fortunately, guys, are finally going to have a competitive architecture to prove to us, not tell us like it's always been. They're going to be able to show us who is better at boxing than the guys standing across from them.